Reading through the Bible in a year, August 29th. 1 Samuel chapters 21 through 22. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, Ezekiel 1, and Psalm 37. Then David came to Nob, to Ahimelech the priest. And Ahimelech came to meet David, trembling, and said to him, "Why are you alone, and no one with you?" And David said to Ahimelech the priest, "The king has charged me with a matter, and said to me, 'Let no one know anything of the matter about which I send you, and with which I have charged you. I have made an appointment with the young men for such and such a place. Now then, what do you have on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread, or whatever is here." And the priest answered David, "I have no common bread on hand, but there is holy bread, if the young men have kept themselves from women." And David answered the priest, "Truly women have been kept from us, as always when I go on an expedition. The vessels of the young men are holy, even when it is an ordinary journey. How much more today will their vessels be holy?" So the priest gave him the holy bread. This is from the table of showbread. For there was no bread there, but the bread of the presence, which is removed from before Yahweh to be replaced by hot bread on the day when it is taken away. Now, a certain man of the servants of Saul was there that day, detained before Yahweh. His name was Doeg the Edomite, the chief of Saul's herdsmen. Then David said to Ahimelech, "Then have you not here a spear or a sword at hand? Because I have brought neither my sword nor my weapons with me, because the king's business required haste." And the priest said, "The sword of Goliath the Philistine, whom you struck down in the valley of Elah. Behold, it is here wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. If you will, take that. For there is none but that here." And David said, "There is none like that. Give it to me." And David rose and fled that day from Saul and went to Achish, the king of Gath. And the servants of Achish said to him, "Is this not David, the king of the land? Did they not sing to one another of him in dances? Saul has struck down his thousands, and David his 10,000s." And David took these words to heart, and was much afraid of Achish, the king of Gath. So he changed his behavior before them, and pretended to be insane in their hands. And he made marks on the doors of the gate, and let his spittle run down his beard. Then Achish said to his servants, "Behold, you see the man is mad. Why then have you brought him to me? Do I lack madmen, that you have brought this fellow to behave as a madman in my presence? Shall this fellow come into my house?" David departed from there, and escaped to the cave of Adullam. And when his brothers and his father's house heard it, they went down there to him. And everyone who was in distress, everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was bitter in soul, gathered to him, and he became commander over them. And there were with him about 400 men. And David went from there to Mizpah of Moab. And he said to the king of Moab, "Please let my father and mother stay with you, till I know what God will do for me." And he left them with the king of Moab, and stayed with him all the time that David was in the stronghold. Then the prophet said to David, "Do not remain in the stronghold. Depart, and go to the land of Judah." So David departed and went into the forest of Hereth. Now, Saul heard that David was discovered, and the men who were with him. Saul was sitting at Gibeah under the tamarisk tree on the height with his spear in his hand, and all his servants were standing about him. And Saul said to his servants who stood about him, "Hear now, people of Benjamin. Will this son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards? Will he make you all commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds, that all of you have conspired against me? No one discloses to me when my son makes a covenant with the son of Jesse. None of you is sorry for me, or discloses to me that my son has stirred up my servant against me, to lie in wait, as at this day." Then answered Doeg the Edomite, who stood by the servants of Saul, "I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob, to Ahimelech the son of Ahitub. And he inquired of Yahweh for him, and gave him provisions, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine." Then the king sent to summon Ahimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, the priests who were at Nob. All of them came to the king. And Saul said to them, "Hear now, son of Ahitub." And he answered, "Here I am, my lord." And Saul said to him, "Why have you conspired against me, you and the son of Jesse, that you have given him bread and a sword, and have inquired of God for him, so that he has risen against me, to lie in wait as at this day? Then Ahimelech answered the king, and who among all your servants is so faithful as David, who is the king's son-in-law, and captain over your bodyguard, and honored in your house? Is today the first time that I've inquired of God for him? No. Let not the king impute anything to his servant or to all the house of my father, for your servant has known nothing of all of this, much or little. And the king said, You shall surely die, Ahimelech, you and your father's house. The king said to the guard who stood by him, to the guards who stood around him, Turn and kill the priests of Yahweh, because their hand is also with David. And they knew that he fled and did not disclose it to me. Clearly they didn't know this. But the servants of the king would not put out their hand to strike the priests of Yahweh. They shouldn't. Then the king said to Doeg, You turn and strike the priests. And Doeg the Edomite turned and struck down the priests. And he killed on that day 85 persons who wore the linen ephod. And Nob, the city of priests, he put to the sword, both man and woman, child and infant, ox and donkey and sheep he put to the sword. But one of the sons of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar told David that Saul had killed the priests of Yahweh. And David said to Abiathar, I knew on that day, when Doeg the Edomite was there, that he would surely tell Saul, I have occasioned the death of all the persons of your father's house. Stay with me, and do not be afraid, for he who seeks my life seeks your life. With me you shall be in safekeeping. Moving on to 1 Corinthians chapter 3 now. But I, brothers, Paul continues, could not address you as spiritual people, but as people of the flesh, as infants in Christ. I fed you with milk, not solid food, for you were not ready for it. And even now you are not yet ready, for you are still of the flesh. For while there is jealousy and strife among you, are you not of the flesh and behaving only in a human way? For when one says, I follow Paul, and another, I follow Apollos, are you not being merely human? What then is Apollos? What is Paul? Servants through whom you believed, as the Lord assigned to each. I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. So neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything, but only God who gives the growth. Remember this when you see famous internet pastors and teachers who many people will flock after. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of really great teachers out there, and I strongly recommend that you hear from most of them. But don't raise them above the level of your own pastor. Your pastor is the one under whom you are, serving Christ. So you want to be careful to serve Christ under that leadership. It's an important thing to remember. But also remember that even your pastor himself could err. He could mess up in something. That's why we go back to the text. As good Bereans, we read through the text, as we're doing now, to understand what it is that God is teaching us, and to understand the things clearly that are being told to us. Continuing on. So neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything, but only God who gives the growth. This is the second time he says the same thing, both in verse 6 and verse 7. He who plants and waters are one, and each will receive his wages according to his labor. For we are God's fellow workers. You are God's field, God's building. According to the grace of God given to me, like a skilled master builder, I laid a foundation, and someone else is building upon it. Let each one take care how he builds upon it. For no one can lay a foundation other than that which is laid, which is Jesus the Christ. Now, if anyone builds on the foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, and straw, each one's work will become manifest or revealed. For the day, meaning the day of Christ's coming, the day of his return, will disclose it, because it will be revealed by fire. It'll be tested by fire. Same thing is said in 1 Peter. And the fire will test what sort of work each one has done. If the work that anyone has built on the foundation survives, he will receive a reward. If anyone's work is burned up, he will suffer loss, though he himself will be saved, but only as through fire. Do you not know that you are God's temple, and that God's Spirit dwells within you? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him. For God's temple is holy, and you are that temple. Let no one deceive himself. If anyone among you thinks that he is wise in this age, meaning wise according to human wisdom, let him become a fool. Literally, let him abandon that wisdom so that he may become wise, meaning truly wise. The statement being made is, if you think that you're smart or that you have a lot of earthly, worldly wisdom, throw that away, because what you need is wisdom from God. For the wisdom of the world is folly, it's stupidity with God. For it is written, he catches the wise in their craftiness. And again, the Lord knows the thoughts of the wise, that they are futile. So let no one boast in men, for all things are yours, whether Paul or Apollos or Cephas, who is Peter, or the world or life or death or the present or the future are all yours. And you are Christ's, and Christ is God's. Now, Ezekiel chapter 1. Go ahead and read the introduction. Here we go. Ezekiel, a prophet and priest, was exiled to Babylon in 597 BC. His ministry extended over at least 23 years. The book opens with his first dramatic vision of the likeness of the Lord himself. Ezekiel was keenly aware of God's presence and power in human affairs. He addressed both the exiles and the people left in Judah with messages of warning and judgment, predicting the fall of Jerusalem. After Jerusalem's fall in 586, Ezekiel prophesied hope and reassurance for the people of Judah, who had then lost the focus of God's covenant, the temple in Jerusalem. His vision of the Valley of Dry Bones, chapter 37, is a classic picture of God's ability to renew his people. Remember, we talked about this before. If you haven't been through this text before, the people of Israel didn't always stay as one glob of people in 12 tribes who all loved Yahweh together. We're reading through in 1 Samuel. We'll get into it in 2 Samuel. And then most assuredly in 1 Kings, we're going to really reveal what happens to that people when they are all together as one group. But as we've read through the book of Judges, and as we're seeing now with the way that Saul is campaigning the people against against David, the son of Jesse, implying the son of Judah, he's campaigning to remind the people that he's not of the lineage of Benjamin. And that because Yahweh had chosen Saul as a king over the people, then his intention, Yahweh's intention, clearly must be that the people of Benjamin should be those who rule over Israel. And he's like, well, who is this son of Jesse? Implying again, son of Judah. So this will continue to build. And it will build even more after the death of Saul. David, when he's king, will have some pretty massive foibles. Someone will try to steal away the kingdom from him, not once but twice. And once it's its own child. He is his own child. And then after David's son, the third king in the entire line of the kings of Israel, Solomon, after he dies, the kingdom is then split into two groups. And the 10 kingdoms all go together in one lump that's called Israel. And then you just have Judah that's left over. And there is some sort of cross, I don't want to use the term contamination, but there is some sort of a cross group of people who all work together. but like some people from Benjamin come over, but not all of the people of Benjamin. So really the line of delineation between them is it's just Judah and a few people, a few other groups that lump themselves in with Judah versus all the rest of Israel, all the rest of the other 10 tribes of Israel. Remember, Levi does not count because Levi has no land among all the people. So that said, when Israel, the nation of Israel, separate from Judah, the northern kingdom versus the southern kingdom, when they broke free from when they broke free from Judah, their king, Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, he was worried that the people would go rushing back to Jerusalem when it came to temple time, to temple service time, to the feasts and so forth. So he made for them 2 golden calves. Already should be a sign that maybe they're not following after Yahweh. He made them 2 golden calves to worship and said, "These are the gods who took you out of the land of Egypt. Worship here instead," because he didn't want them to go back to Jerusalem. After this happens, they do not have a single good king who is positive in any way toward the cause of Yahweh in all of Israel. There is one who momentarily does the things that Yahweh wants him to do, and then he immediately falls back into essentially self-worship. It gets bad, and it kind of stays bad for Israel. So that is why Ezekiel went over first. He went in the first group of people, not the first group of people, but he was in some of the groups. He was exiled to Babylon. If I remember correctly, I could be wrong, but he was one of the people who was carried over from Jerusalem. So he was in Judah, who was carried in the first group of people that went over. These are the people to whom the letter of Jeremiah in Jeremiah 29 would have gone. So he would have read this letter among the people, that, God has a plan for them, a plan for good and not for evil, and letting them know that there is for those who went over in this exile, that there was a plan for them that would work out well. That they, out of all the people of Judah, they were the blessed ones, because they weren't going to have to see the destruction of Judah and Jerusalem. So, all of that said, previously, when I went through this text, I said incorrectly that Ezekiel had been part of the people of Israel when they went over. He is not. But just know that there's a handful of different exiles that took place where people were taken away from the whole land of Israel, meaning all of the kingdoms together, and how they were sent over. The people of Israel, as in the other 10 kingdoms, they went over first, and then Judah met its end in multiple attacks when they actually fell in 586, and then most of the people were killed. The few left over were taken captive to Babylon, which is in the land of Chaldea. They were taken over there, and then who is it? Oh, and then the poorest of the land were put in charge of everything left over, because again, Nebuchadnezzar and his leaders, his captains, knew that these people wouldn't rise up against them to attack them. So, continuing on, that is the brief introduction to Ezekiel. Go ahead and begin. Verse 1. In the 30th year, in the 4th month, on the 5th day of the month, I was among the exiles by the Kibar Canal. The heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. On the 5th day of the month, it was the 5th year of the exile of King Jehoiakim. The word of Yahweh came to Ezekiel, the priest, the son of Buzi, in the land of the Chaldeans by the Kibar Canal, and the hand of Yahweh was upon him there. As I looked, behold, a stormy wind came out of the north, and a great cloud with brightness around it, and fire flashing forth continually. And in the midst of the fire, as it were gleaming metal, and from the midst of it came the likeness of 4 living creatures. And this was their appearance. They had a human likeness, but each had 4 faces, and each of them had 4 wings. Again, strongly recommend you read the notes in this section. It's going to help a lot. Ezekiel tends to be one of the very descriptive, but kind of poetic books, if that makes sense. Again, read the notes, they'll help. Continuing on. Verse 7. Their legs were straight, and the soles of their feet were like the sole of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like burnished bronze. Under their wings, on the 4 sides, they had human hands, and the 4 had their faces, and their wings thus. Their wings touched one another. Each one of them went straight forward, without turning as they went. And as for the likeness of their faces, they each had a human face. The 4 had the face of a lion on the right side, the 4 had the face of an ox on the left side, and the 4 had a face of an eagle. Such were their faces, and their wings were spread out above. Each creature had 2 wings, and each of them touched the wing of another, while the 2 covered their bodies. There we go. I'm making sure we scroll with the notes so you can see everything and keep up with it so you don't lose any of this. Continuing on, verse 12. And each went straight forward. Wherever the Spirit would go, they went, without turning as they went. As for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire, like the appearance of torches moving to and fro among the living creatures. And the fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightning. And the living creatures darted to and fro like the appearance of a flash of lightning. Now, as I looked at the living creatures, I saw a wheel on the earth beside the living creatures, for each one of them, for one for each of the 4 of them. As for the appearance of the wheels and their construction, their appearance was like the gleaming of beryl, and the 4 had the same likeness, their appearance and construction being, as it were, a wheel within a wheel. When they went in any of their 4 directions, without turning as they went. And the rims were tall and awesome, and the rims of all 4 were full of eyes all around. When the living creatures went, the wheels went beside them. And when the living creatures rose from the earth, the wheels rose. Wherever the Spirit wanted to go, they went. And the wheels rose along with them. For the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. When those went, these went. And when those stood, these stood. When those rose from the earth, the wheels rose along with them. For the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. Over the heads of the living creatures there was the likeness of an expanse, shining like an awe-inspiring crystal, spread out above their heads. And under the expanse their wings were stretched out straight, one toward another. And each creature had 2 wings covering its body. And when they went, I heard the sound of their wings like the sound of many waters, like the sound of the Almighty, a sound of tumult, like the sound of an army. When they stood still, they let down their wings. There came a voice from above the expanse over their heads. When they stood still, they let down their wings. And above the expanse over their heads there was the likeness of a throne. And in appearance like sapphire, was seated above the likeness of the throne, was a likeness with the human appearance. And upward, from what had the appearance of his waist, I saw as it were gleaming metal, like the appearance of fire enclosed all around. And downward, from what had the appearance of its waist, or his waist, I saw as it were the appearance of fire, and there was brightness around him. Like the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud on the day of rain, so was the appearance of the brightness all around. Such was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of Yahweh. When I saw it, I fell on my face, and I heard the voice of one speaking. All the notes to here, including today in Psalm 36. Fret not yourself because of evildoers. Be not envious of wrongdoers, For they will soon fade like the grass, and wither like the green herb. Trust in Yahweh and do good. Dwell in the land and befriend faithfulness. Delight yourself in Yahweh, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to Yahweh. Trust in him, and he will act. He will bring forth your righteousness as the light, and your justice as the noonday. Be still before Yahweh, and wait patiently for him. Fret not yourself over the one who prospers in his way, over the man who carries out evil devices. Refrain from anger and forsake wrath. Fret not yourself, it tends only to evil. For the evildoers shall be cut off, but those who wait for Yahweh shall inherit the land. In just a little while, the wicked will be no more. Though you look carefully at his place, he will not be there. But the meek shall inherit the land, and delight themselves in abundant peace. The wicked plots against the righteous and gnashes his teeth at him. But the Lord laughs at the wicked, for he sees that his day is coming. The wicked draw the sword and bend their bows to bring down the poor and needy, to slay those whose way is upright. Their sword shall enter their own heart, and their bows shall be broken. Better is the little that the righteous has than the abundance of many wicked. For the arms of the wicked shall be broken, but Yahweh upholds the righteous. Yahweh knows the days of the blameless, and their heritage will remain forever. They are not put to shame in evil times. In the days of famine they have abundance. But the wicked will perish. The enemies of Yahweh are like the glory of the pasture. They vanish like smoke, they vanish away. The wicked borrows, but does not pay back. But the righteous is generous and gives. For those blessed by Yahweh shall inherit the land. But those cursed by him shall be cut off. The steps of a man are established by Yahweh, when he delights in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be cast headlong, for Yahweh upholds his hand. I have been young and now am old. Yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, or his children begging for bread. He is ever lending generously, and his children become a blessing. Turn away from evil and do good, so shall you dwell forever. For Yahweh loves justice. He will not forsake his saints. They are preserved forever, but the children of the wicked shall be cut off. The righteous shall inherit the land, and dwell upon it forever. The mouth of the righteous utters wisdom, and his tongue speaks justice. The law of his God is in his heart. His steps do not slip. The wicked watches for the righteous, and seeks to put him to death. Yahweh will not abandon him to his power, or let him be condemned when he is brought to trial. Wait for Yahweh, and keep his way, and he will exalt you to inherit the land. You will look on when the wicked are cut off. I have seen a wicked, ruthless man, spreading himself like a green laurel tree. But he passed away, and behold, he was no more. Though I sought him, he could not be found. Mark the blameless, and behold the upright. For there is a future for the man of peace, but their transgressors shall be altogether destroyed. The future of the wicked shall be cut off. The salvation of the righteous is from Yahweh. He is their stronghold in the time of trouble. Yahweh helps them and delivers them. He delivers them from the wicked and saves them, because they take refuge in him. That's all for today. That is all the reading and all of the notes. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow. Behold the word of the Lord.